Hey everybody, Alan Schaefer at Custom Garden Solutions. In today's exciting episode, I'm going to share with you how to make a self-watering planter out of two 5-gallon buckets. So stay tuned. Before we start, you're going to need a couple things. You're going to need one 30-inch long piece of 3/4-inch PVC. You're going to need two 5-gallon buckets. Don't need to be anything special. They just need to fit inside one another. All right? You're going to need a net pot or a net cup. And this is 4 inches diameter. And this net cup I'll put in the description down below so that you can check it out at Amazon. You're going to need some coconut coir, C-O-I-R. And this is compressed in brick-like fashion. And it's going to uncompress when you add water to it. So you're going to need a bucket to do so. I've already done it, so I've got some nice loose coconut coir here, ready to go. You're going to need some cable ties or some zip ties. You're going to need a Sharpie, some type of permanent marker, some measuring tape, some bits, some drill bits, and you're going to need a drill with a hole saw implement or a hole saw connection. Now this is 3 3/4. You're also going to need one that's 1 1/8. You may need a hacksaw in case you want to cut down your PVC. That's it. Let's get started. All right, turn one of your buckets upside down and put your net pot in there. Remember, this is a 4-inch diameter net pot. And just take your marker and go around and create a circle, okay? And I've already done that. That's a 4-inch diameter circle. This is a 3 3/4 inch hole saw. Stick your hole saw right in the middle and then just drill a hole. All right. So now you've got a 3 3/4 inch hole. All right. As you can see, it's inside of the hole I drew, so that's perfect. Now you just grab your net pot, and it fits perfectly. All right. So now I'm going to take this net pot and I'm going to drill 3 holes kind of in a triangular form, and then I'm going to use the zip ties or the cable ties to hold that net pot in place. So let's do that now. That's one. Two. That's 3. All right, see this drill that's in the middle of the hole saw? It's kind of big, and when you put it into the plastic, it wants to move around a little bit. So I'm going to pre-drill a hole. And I'm going to make this hole, here's the handle. On the opposite side of the handle, at about 3 o'clock, all right? So these little marks here are actually where the handles are, down here. So I'm just gonna pre-drill a hole right about here. Well, that was quite easy. Now I'm gonna take the 1 1/8 inch hole saw. I'm gonna stick it in the pre-drilled hole. Helps when you go in the right direction. Perfect, all right? So I've got the 1 1/8 inch hole here, the 3 3/4 inch hole here. This is going to fit the PVC. This is going to fill the net pot. All right. Hey, one real quick note that I want to add in If you don't have a 3 3/4 inch or a 1 1/8 inch hole saw add-on for your drill, all right, if you don't have one of those, they're not required. They sure make the job a lot easier and a lot cleaner and a lot less room for error. But I've got a roto zip and a Dremel saw, and all you need to do is, take a drill a hole, and then just core out your 3 3/4 inch diameter and your 1 1/8 inch diameter, and you can proceed with that. So you don't have to have the hole saw. You can get by with some other tools. I'm gonna take the zip tie, I'm gonna grab it, pull it through the hole. Run the zip tie through. I'm just going to pull it shut. All right. Now I'm going to do that with 2 more. I'll run it through the bottom here. And I'll zip tie or put that in place. We got uno más. Okay. Run that through. There we go. So that's in place. It's not going anywhere. The next thing I'm going to do is drill 10 or so holes in the bottom of the top bucket. So let's take care of that real quick. So there's no pattern or anything you need to follow. 10 or 12 holes. You just want the water to be able to flow down to the bottom bucket. And also, at the end of the summer, some of the roots will go right down in the water. But there'll be nutrition in the water because some of the water will filter through the soil and it'll be healthy for your plants. All right, so now I've got the net pot put in. I've got 10 to 15 little holes drilled in the bottom. I've secured the net pot with 3 cable ties, and I've cut a hole for the PVC to go through. When you put the buckets on top of each other, make sure that the handles line up. You're going to want to later tie this handle here to hold the 2 buckets together. Right? See, with this bottom handle up, the bucket doesn't go any further. And you want to be able to use this bucket to pick up the plant when it gets heavy. So you can lift it kind of like this. All right? So I'm going to go ahead and put the PVC in. But there's one more thing I need to do. I need to cut an angle on this PVC so that when it's on the bottom, water will run out, all right? So I'm going to cut an angle on this. Doesn't have to be pretty. Try doing it without cutting your fingers off. All right, so now I've cut this. Again, so you don't want it like this when it goes through the bucket on the inside, because this is going to go against the bottom, and when you go to water from the top, the water's not going to have any room to come out. Now if you cut a little notch like I have here, it's about 2 inches. The water will, when you water from the top, it'll go down to the bottom container and it'll spill out, all right? And think, the water's going to get dirty, you may get a little mud down at the bottom, so this is very important. So you basically want to put this into that hole. All right, just put it into the hole that we've already cut. All right, see how that fits? Get all the debris out. Then line up the handles. And now I'm going to cut 2 holes. And I'm going to put a zip tie through to hold this in place. So let's do that now. So get it straight. Just 2 holes. You can go down a few inches. Make sure it's straight. Uno, dos. Grab a zip tie here. Run it through. And pull it tight. And I'll cut off the extra part of that zip tie a little bit later. Make sure this is nice and tight. So now I've got the 30-inch PVC, 3/4 inch PVC in. But you can do a couple things with this. You could maybe use a 48-inch piece of PVC or higher if you'd like. And let's say this is a tomato plant growing up the middle. You could take some 14 gauge wire, something like this, and you could wrap it around and have it kind of hold your plant in place. So when the wind blows, it's only going to blow about that far, so it acts kind of like a trellis. Now these are a little bit longer than I would recommend, although I do have plants that get this high in bucket, tomato plants. Let me turn this, and once this is filled with dirt, you put one in on each side, and they'll stay once the dirt's been in a while. You know, it's probably typical that your plant isn't going to be real big when it goes in, but as it grows, the soil will get more solid inside, more packed down, and you could put 2 of these 2 stakes in, and then again, you can use your 14 gauge wire to run between them to hold the middle of your tomato plant up, or your pepper plant, or whatever you're growing here. So you do have some options. You could also put a tomato cage on the inside of this with the typical 4 prongs inside, or you could do it on the outside. So there's a bunch of options as far as supporting your plant. The next thing we got to do is drill an overflow hole. So we've got the watering tube in place. When you water, it goes through the top bucket into the reservoir in the bottom, into the second bucket, okay? And there's about 1 inch or 2 of space in there. So you want to create an overflow hole just below the inside bucket so that when you water, it has a place to overflow and doesn't flood your plant. All right? Otherwise, if you had a heavy rainstorm, it would just fill up with water and your plants wouldn't stand a chance. So let's go ahead and drill the overflow hole. When you're drilling the overflow hole, the best thing to do is put it up to the sun, and you'll see the shaded area where the second bucket or the inside bucket is, and you just put a little dot there, and that's where you're going to want to drill. So now I've got the overflow hole right here. And it's important that you put it on the side of the water filling tube. Here's the reason why. All right, so I've got this filled up, and you might also want to get a funnel on top. You can get a cheap plastic funnel for, you know, less than $1 probably. But you're filling this up, you want to be able to see when the overflow starts coming out so you can stop watering. If the overflow hole is on the opposite side, when you're filling it up, you got to be looking over like this. It's kind of a pain in the neck. Just trust me, I've done about 20 of these buckets. It's so much easier to have the overflow hole on the side of your watering tube. All right? Perfect. One other thing that I do is I like to use this top handle, and you can grab it by the bottom and the top, and you can carry this around. You know, let's say you're bringing it, for instance, when I bring it in outside from inside my house. So go ahead and rest this up against the water filling tube. Take the second handle, and these Menards buckets do this, yours may not, and drill yourself just one will do. One hole. I had some smaller ones. This is the bottom handle. So I've drilled a hole, and I'm going to zip tie it. And now I can use the handle, and the other bucket isn't going to come apart. All right? So it's not important, but just a little thing I do. And now, and I'll cut this off later, but now I've got the bucket, and I'm ready to fill it up. All right, so the last thing I want to do before I put the soil in is take the coconut coir that I've added water to so it uncompresses, and I want to add it to the net pot. So let's do that. All right, so now I'm just taking some of the coconut coir. I'm going to push it down in there. And I'll make it like I'll tighten it up in my hand like a fist. I want this to be pretty compressed. Just add that all in there. Now, this is not an instance where I would recommend peat moss or a substitute for this. I would use coconut coir. It's absorbent, and what it's going to do is via capillary action, big word of the day, capillary action, it's going to absorb the water from the bottom bucket through the net cup, and it's going to bring it into contact with the soil, and the soil will soak up the water all the way to the top. It's really amazing. So just kind of fill it to where it's even. That should do, that's fine. Push it in. So now we got the bucket all filled up. The only thing is missing is some soil and some plants. So I'm going to run over to a friend of mine's house, and we're going to add some soil and finish this up. So now we're going to go ahead and fill up the bucket. Our friend Jim's filling up the bucket. This is just some compost. If your soil isn't so great, you might want to use some vermiculite, some more coconut coir, just to loosen it up. But this is 100% compost. It's the type that we deliver at Custom Garden Solutions, so it's just 100% compost. It's very loamy, very loose, and this will work great. So we'll fill this up. And the air conditioner will go on. And when you fill it up, go ahead and go up to the top This is going to settle probably about 20% or so. So when I mention it's loose, light, it really is. And that should do it. All right, so we're all set. We've got it all filled up. All we have to do now is put a plant in and give it a good watering. So I've taken this plant and I've taken off a couple of the branches. I'm going to go ahead and bury that. And we'll just fill it in around. Yeah, go ahead. And we'll just fill it up. All we have to do is water it. So now we're just going to water it in. Now, I'm not worried about overwatering because on this side where the water filler is, we've got the overflow valve. The compost that we put in here was already pretty moist. There you have it. So here's the one we just built. Here's one we built several years ago. And this is an example where he's using a cage to hold the plant in place. I'm Alan Schaefer at Custom Garden Solutions. If you're new to the channel and you want to learn all about growing herbs and vegetables and all kinds of cool garden stuff, then start today by subscribing. And once you're subscribed, hit the notification bell so you're notified whenever we release a new episode so you don't miss anything, because you never know where I'm going to show up next. And now the star of the show, the pepper.